Hey, Hawkeye fans, Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register with Tyler Tachman of the Des Moines Register right next to I don't know if I guess he's on my left or right, whatever it is to you guys. That's where he is. Physically, he's right next door to me. I'm in the Kinnick press box. He's in the Kinnick press box. We have witnessed Iowa's latest I don't want to say miracle win because we see it all the time, but just sort of like out of nowhere. Uh 15-13 win against Illinois, clinching the Big Ten West outright. Tyler, this is your first season, obviously covering the team with me, but what is your reaction to kind of watching how Iowa does this and the fact that they're going back to Indiana, your home ground?
Yeah, it's hard not to marvel at just everything that Iowa has been through this season. If you look at all the hurdles they've dealt with, the sports wagering investigation, I know that was partly their own fault, but I think that the adversity that came with the Noah Shannon situation and what was a harsh penalty, that probably wasn't warranted. Between that, injuries to Cade McNamara, Eric All, Luke Lachey, some of the guys that really were so integral in having optimism around the offense, having them go down with injury. Then you look at the Minnesota game with the invalid fair catch signal and the controversy that followed that. Then the news that Kirk Ferentz won't be returning as offensive coordinator following this season. Iowa somehow still found ways to win. That's been the theme for this season. They've taken punches. They've kept fighting. And then just when it feels like, okay, well, Iowa might not be able to handle anything else, Cooper DeJean goes down and, leading up to the Illinois game, done for the season. And in a spot where Iowa was very similar to last season, where they need to win one game to make it to the Big Ten championship. Last season, they needed to win the last game, but this one they had 2 games to win one. It felt like it might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And then they just come down and kind of a game that was emblematic of the season where, we're trailing. Caleb Johnson comes up with a really timely run, a guy that hadn't played, he didn't even get a carry in the Northwestern game, bitten by injury. Man, it's just a chaotic season, so many moving parts, but it's hard not to just look back at it and think, just be impressed by the way that Iowa's handled everything.
Yeah, good big picture, laying it out there. The adversity that Iowa did overcome this year, yeah, emblematic. That Noah Shannon was the honorary captain on Senior Day. So many seniors made big plays today. We will, I assume, we'll get to those as we go along here. Let's focus for a second on kind of the offense coming through at the end. I kind of wrote about that, and then maybe how that goes into the Kirk Ferentz conversation. Hawkeyes get the ball. I think I'm going to write my follow column on this in part, but they remember this, Tyler. After you mentioned the Cooper DeJean, so I'm teasing you guys what I'm going to write about next. Good, a very pro move here. The Hawkeyes, after the Cooper DeJean invalid fair catch against Minnesota. Okay, it's 12-10. You're down 3. You get the ball at what yard line? What yard line do you remember? Their own 46. They got the ball at their own 46 with a chance to. Just needed like 20 yards maybe for a field goal try for Drew Stevens. That's all they needed, and they couldn't come up with it against Minnesota. Deacon Hill throws a pick 3 plays later. Today, they get the ball down 13-9 at their own 46. Same situation, a little more time on the clock, but this time the offense executes, and they move all the way down the field. They need a touchdown to win. They get that touchdown, a really clutch third down pass. It was 3rd and 5. Nico Regaini, as I wrote in my thoughts column, second biggest catch of his Iowa career, pulls it in to move the sticks. If he doesn't catch that, probably don't win the game. I mean, unless they convert the 4th down. They probably punt, actually, in that case. Maybe. They had 1 timeout left. Different story. Ferentz called 2 early timeouts, 1 to complain about a penalty. But anyway, and then you get a pass interference call. Drawn by Caleb Brown, who wasn't even in the plan several weeks ago. And then the next play, Caleb Johnson, benched at Northwestern for a coach's decision, runs 30 yards into that north end zone that I'm looking at right now to get the go-ahead score. And, of course, to make it more difficult, the PATs block and they have to hold off everything. But just kind of emblematic of sort of the offense. Offense kind of, they struggled for a little while here, but they had a good first half. And then when they needed to step up, they actually did this time to give them the win. And the defense got to stand on the sideline and watch after the last 4.5 minutes, or whatever it was. They walked off the field in 3:40, I think. They got a first down and then took knees. So, yeah.
Well, I want to, touch on Deacon Hill because the difference the difference between the version of him that came in that Michigan State game, the Purdue game, et cetera, those early games, between what he's done the last 2 weeks is just, it's astronomical. We've kind of seen him grow up right before our own eyes. And again, Iowa's offense wasn't good today. But they got it done when it was needed. And actually Deacon Hill started the game off really well. He looks like he's so much more comfortable in the pocket, getting in a rhythm. You can just see him not panicking as much, more sound decision making. And this is a guy that, and again, we've talked about this, hadn't attempted a pass in college before this season. He was at Wisconsin. He entered the transfer portal. He wasn't even going to play FBS football. He was committed to Fordham, then changed course, ended up at Iowa. You're thinking Cade McNamara is the big splash that Iowa makes in the transfer portal. No, it ends up being Deacon Hill that's in the spotlight, for the better part of the season. And again, it wasn't perfect. He didn't turn the ball over today, which was a big factor, in the performance. But he just looks much more closer to the type of quarterback that Iowa needs him to be over these last 2 games. And it's been, he seems like a great character guy, is really engaging, and to see him kind of grow over these last few games that he's been in a really difficult situation has been, kind of fun to watch.
And then, of course, that spills into a lot of Brian Ferentz talk, conversation, emotions, visuals. He gets the not the Gatorade dump because it was water, but let's call it the Gatorade bath from offensive lineman Mason Richmond, who carries it over. Really cool moment, for the offensive coordinator, for the team. So many guys hugging Brian after I think Cohen Entringer, a safety, is the first guy to embrace Brian. It's just you feel good for these guys. You feel good. I tweeted out before the game some quotes from Brian Ferentz about what Kinnick Stadium means to him from my podcast with him from July 2021. And, this is a special place to him. And he came into the stadium with emotions. He left the stadium with emotions. He gets to walk away, out of here, his last game at Kinnick as a Big Ten West champion. And I know there's some 3-word headlines about bring Brian back or whatever, or, all this stuff about, Beth Getz making the wrong decision. But I don't agree with that at all. I think that this is almost I want to say perfect, but a really nice way for this to end. He gets to walk off a winner. The offense scored 13 points today, gained less than 300 yards. It's not like this is a masterpiece offense, but he did what he needed to do to win the game, which has sort of been what Kirk Ferentz has always asked him to do. So I'm happy on a personal and professional level for Brian, happy for the players, but also in agreement that there did need to be a cut of the cord here at some point. So I'm not going down the road for those that wrote the 3-word headlines. And I think most people, there were some also 3-word headlines of still time to move on, it's done with nepotism. In other words, this is kind of the cutoff. But it didn't end in a sour meltdown type of way is what I'm saying, Tyler. They won 3 games, went 3-0 since he was let go by the university.
It felt like in the post-game press conference with Kirk, he kind of let his guard down a little bit more regarding the situation with Brian, where it says, is there a pool for media to see? Yeah, I wasn't meaning to do that or anything, but I think it just kind of came with the territory of the day. But
for those that didn't see it, who didn't see that comment, read the comment.
Okay, yeah, for the audio crowd. So basically, there's a comment saying, "Is there a pool for the media to see who's the first to make Kirk cry during the post game news conference?" Tyler won this week. Yeah, I basically just asked him like personally, how has he dealt with all the emotions, throughout the season where there's been a lot of ups and downs. So I wasn't trying to pull any strings or anything, but anyways. I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point. Brian, okay, so Kirk, it seemed like he let his guard down a little bit more talking about Brian. He said like, I'm proud of him as a father, because when we talked to him directly after the news was made public, he was very much deflecting questions, not really giving a lot of the insight to what has been like for him as a father watching his son learn that he's not coming back following this season. And again, I don't blame Kirk for approaching it that way. It's a very sensitive topic. It's uncomfortable in the sense that it's your personal life and professional life intertwined on a big stage. It's a big time football program. So I don't blame Kirk one bit for approaching it that way. But after the game today, he did just he let his guard down a little bit more and saying that, like, as a father, he is proud of Brian, the way that he has handled a really difficult situation, because we haven't talked to Brian. We don't really know. We haven't been given insight to how he is all handling this. But I thought, Kirk giving just that little thing about mentioning himself being a father to Brian and being proud of him as a father, I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, right? Like, we're, sons, daughters, fathers, mothers. That's something that, is a commonality between all of that. And I feel like that really hit the humanistic side of things behind all of the moving parts that have been going on.
Yeah, he rarely references like Brian being his son or whatever. And he even made a comment after, like, I try to keep that separate, or I do keep that separate. So yeah, I think there definitely were emotions there. You clearly all saw that on TV from what you saw. And if you were here, you saw the hugs after the game. But we haven't talked to Brian since August. And he was the one assistant coach that they did not make available. We won't get an assistant coach this week either. So it's possible we will never hear from Brian while he's in a Hawkeye quote-unquote uniform, although he's not in a Hawkeye uniform because he's wearing a blank black sweatshirt the last 2 weeks. And then, probably a little bit of a statement that he's making there. Obviously, I mean, it's no coincidence he's not wearing Hawkeye stuff. But at the same time, he professionally handled it and, delivered when Iowa needed it. And I thought the offense did look good in the first half. Let's give some wide receivers credit here today. Caleb Brown, 10 targets, 7 catches, 71 yards. Nico Reggini, 5 catches, 46 yards. Addison Estrenga, another 5 catches for 24. Those were grinded out type catches. And then Seth Anderson had a couple of really clutch catches. Also had 1 called back, but 2 for 26. So remember that conversation we had, Tyler, what was it, week 3? I think they had 2 wide receiver catches, maybe even. Or no catches, maybe. I can't even remember now, but it was early in the year. They did nothing, and maybe it was 2 catches at Penn State. Anyway, but today, look at that: 7, 5, 2, 14 of the 19 catches were wide receivers, and Caleb Brown was fantastic.
Credit to the O-line, the wide receiver group, because those are 2 position groups that have been targets for criticism, that have underperformed at points this season. But like Iowa as a whole, they've been resilient. And Caleb Brown is a dog. I mean, he especially, since basically he had that first catch against Northwestern, he has been really good. And Nico being able to, in his last game at Kinnick too, a really good way for him to go out. But the offensive line too, just with the injuries they've had, the moving pieces, I thought they protected Deacon pretty well. The running game wasn't great, but Caleb Johnson, got through on that last one. And so those are 2 position groups that could have been counted out and could have kind of just called it a season. but they both, today and especially the last couple games have come up really big.
Yeah. I want to talk about the defense at some point. Are we good with the offense now? What do you think? Anything more on the offense?
Well, yeah, I'll just mention Caleb Johnson, and I touched on this a little bit, but a guy that had a lot of success as a freshman, was kind of perceived as a potential breakout guy this season. Hasn't gone that way. He was injured, missed some time. Then he came back, had a really good game against Purdue, and then he just totally falls basically out of the rotation. Doesn't even get a carry against Northwestern, but him kind of sticking with the process and being able to come up in a big time spot, today.
Sorry to keep dinging. I'm sending messages to my boss while you're talking, and that's dinging on your
Yeah. You're trying to throw me off here. I'm trying to keep my focus.
You did a good job. You did a good job there.
Thank you.
So let's talk. First of all, I did a little. I don't know if we'll mention punting anymore, but Tory Taylor, 8 punts, 51.6 yard average on his in his Kinnick finale. So he does hit the over. I set the over under at 49.5 yards per punt for Tory in pregame, and he goes over. And it probably should have been more because who was it? John Nestor kind of like accidentally touched one of the footballs before it got to at the 7 when it could have been at the 1. And then Cohen Entringer accidentally let the ball go in the end zone. It could have been down at the 1. So fantastic game for him. But defensively, it was kind of weird. Like Illinois' game plan was definitely throw the ball. I was surprised they didn't run it more, but John Paddock throws the ball 47 times. He ends up 22 of 47 for 215 yards. It seemed like he was more effective than that at times, but it also seemed like Iowa should have had 8 interceptions. They end up with 13 pass breakups for the game. I don't know if that's a school record, but it's got to be close.
I think if Iowa loses this game, we're probably talking about the Quinn Schulte penalty right now, because it was a bad call. And I think, Iowa's defense, they were good, but I felt like, and this is stating the obvious, that they missed Cooper DeJean. And I don't think that was because necessarily Jamari Harris or Deshaun Lee played poorly. I think they both played pretty well, but it just feels like Cooper, he just fills a lot of holes, just having his presence out there. The fact that, you're going to be locked down on one end, one corner, and, there might not be a lot of balls thrown that way. And the fact that what Cooper can do on the special team side of it in terms of as a gunner and as a punt returner. But it did feel like there was maybe brief periods of kind of growing pains without him. But overall, I thought that Iowa's defense played well. There was also just some sort of undisciplined stuff that you normally wouldn't expect, the offsides call that extended Illinois' drive, and the Schulte penalty again. Probably that was a football play, and it's hard to defend that was a penalty. But at the end of the day, those were kind of a little bit of things that gave Illinois a bigger window to possible success than I think we've been accustomed to seeing the last few games from Iowa.
And after that Schulte penalty, Tyler, it looked like Illinois might punch in a touchdown and go up 17-9. I want to pull up the play-by-play here, but Iowa holds them to 3 points. That was huge. It was a 29-yard field goal, I believe. Sorry, I'm fumbling through my papers here a little bit, but it was a long drive. Oh, yeah, it was the first play of the fourth quarter. So they had 3rd and 1 at Iowa's 11-yard line, and then John Paddock goes for the QB sneak, gets stuffed.
And that's Castro. Credit to Castro, because Paddock, he went into the initial line and then kind of bounced out around the outside. And it was very possible for Iowa's defense just to think he disappeared into the pile, but heads up play by Sebastian Castro to sniff that out and make the play.
Yeah, that ends up being a 12-play, 69-yard drive, but only 3 points. So you basically start the fourth quarter down 4 instead of down 8. Down 8 would have felt tough. They couldn't even kick the PAT, let alone get the 2. But So huge, the defense definitely stepped up. And then even after the block PAT, Illinois goes 4 and out. I mean, they get a 7-yard run on first down. And then, I'll have to watch the tape again, but it was a pass, right? Wasn't it a pass to the flat? Here, let me call up the play. It was another run. I'm sorry. It was a run, there was a pass, then a run. So Reggie Love runs, looks like he's maybe going to get a first down. They stop him. Looks like they gave credit to Higgins and Jackson, who else, for stopping him short of the line to gain. And then 2 passes batted down, both by Joe Evans, who gets the safety in the first quarter as well. So Evans, I noticed in the game notes, now up to 6th in team history in sacks with 24. Pretty awesome career for him. And he was probably the best of the players, didn't you think, in post game? I mean, Joe Evans was on fire. He was like banging his water bottle on the podium, and he was pumped up.
Yeah, there's so many like individual success stories that have made something more collectively like rewarding for the group. Like Joe Evans, he was a walk-on, working his way. The plays that he made today were just massive. We've mentioned Caleb Brown, who basically was a non-factor earlier in the season. Now he's coming around and really making big plays. Caleb Johnson, Jay Higgins, who waited his turn behind Jack Campbell. There's just so many of these, like in the offensive line too, like Tyler Ellsbury coming in, spelling Logan Jones. Like there's so many of just these individual success stories of guys showing resilience. And I think when you put them all together as a collective group, what happens is what you have seen this season. And even more specifically, what happened on Saturday against Illinois, that all these guys coming together and creating something bigger than themselves.
I do want to talk about next week and the Big Ten championship game, which Iowa has clinched a berth to. I think we mentioned that. I hope we did. Early. I think we did. But let's do a few 3-word headlines first, and maybe we'll launch into some of those conversations. I want to give Raina Harmon, assistant women's coach, a shout out. She didn't submit a headline, but she did post one. So I liked it, and I wanted to start with that. Whatever it takes, she hashtagged. Joey Sanders against all odds. I like that one with the gambling element there. This was a funny one. Jesse Lucier, drive to 350. So now Brian Ferentz's 25 points per game threshold goes to 14 games.
Very true. Very true.
So it's no longer the drive to 325. It's a drive to 350. If you have any others called up, go ahead. Otherwise, I can keep rolling here, Tyler.
No, go. You can go ahead.
Eli Reinhardt, West champs forever. That is correct. There will not be another Big Ten West. So Iowa is the last Big Ten West champion. It's not shared. It's not disputed. Even if Iowa loses next week, they get it completely outright. And they had the chance to do that last year, Tyler, at home and didn't. So you kind of got to give Iowa a little bit of credit for showing that resiliency today, also without Cooper DeJean like last year against Nebraska. And
part of the reason that I felt this getting to the Big Ten championship this season was even more important than usual is because it's going to be so difficult to get there moving forward. With the divisions going away, you have Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA coming in starting next season. The top 2 teams in the entire Big Ten go to the Big Ten championship. So the odds of Iowa getting back to the Big Ten championship are going to decline exponentially after this season. So just, as flawed as Iowa is, just like enjoying this ride because, there's no guarantee that they will ever get back to the Big Ten championship, or at least if they do, it's going to be a lot more difficult. So that's why I feel like this, capitalizing on this opportunity was even more kind of seismic.
Yeah, now you get a chip in a chair, as they say. You get a shot. You get a shot at Indy to capture a Big Ten championship and shock the world. And they're playing a little bit better on offense. Not great, but they're a little bit better on offense, and that's something. Gabe Johnson, always one of our favorites, supplied 8 headlines today. I'm going to read them all because they're all good. Brian deserved better. Thumbs up, Caleb's. So yes, Caleb Johnson and Caleb Brown. Cry, Kirk, cry. Mild West. Hug your sons. I like that. Those of us that have sons may get emotional just thinking about it. We want Buckeyes. Don't want Michigan. And extra horseradish, please. Of course, referring to the St. Elmo's shrimp cocktails in Indianapolis. So great collection there, Gabe. That was one of your best efforts, I will say.
This might be a hot take. I don't like shrimp. So I don't know. Do you like shrimp?
I do, and I did have the shrimp cocktail last year at Big Ten Media Days.
Okay.
So yeah, I've had it.
It's not like I like seafood. I don't know. It's just like
this is a little spicy for me. A little spicy for me. It's pretty spicy.
So I might be skipping the shrimp there, but
that's right. Yeah, you're Mr. Salmon. That's right.
Yeah. It might save my stomach though if I don't go for the.
Jason Price won by safety. I like that. The defense with that safety provides the winning margin there. Carla Rocco says happy for Brian. Brett Schneider, Phil Broyles Parker. That one got a lot of likes on the Twitter. And last one I wanted to read. Nader Dadala says Hawkeyes, America's team. Of course, referencing Jim Harbaugh saying Michigan is America's team. So potentially the Hawkeyes will be facing Jim Harbaugh on his return from suspension. So the crazy Big Ten, man.
Yeah, now it's interesting to see who Iowa will play in the Big Ten championship. Who's gonna have the privilege of playing Iowa in the Big Ten championship? It's gonna be Michigan and Ohio State fighting it out. But I wouldn't, regardless of who it is, I don't think there's a slim chance that Iowa wins. But this season has just been such just roller coaster that I feel like anything can happen. I said, I wouldn't bet on Iowa to win, but at the same time, who knows?
Okay, so a couple things here. Let's on the opponent. Right now, I think Iowa's better chance is Ohio State, just because. I mean, you'd love to have Cooper DeJean for that to guard Marvin Harrison Jr. That's not ideal, but still, their offense has not been what it was under C.J. Stroud, Justin Fields, etc. But on the flip side, Michigan provides all kinds of drama. And I do feel like a couple things. Number one, too bad that Cade McNamara and Eric All aren't playing in that game if that happens. I mean, that would have been a pretty awesome storyline. They'll be there, of course, wearing Hawkeye stuff. But I do think if it is Michigan, you're going to have maybe not everybody, but I would say most of the country probably rooting for you because the Michigan has definitely created some enemies.
For sure. Even more so than usual. I feel like people already are kind of have disdain for him, and now there's public enemy number one. So
yeah, so any Ohio State fans or whatever that bought tickets to the game are just going to go. They're going to definitely root for Iowa. But so anyway, the drama will be there if it's Michigan, and then you might have more public support as opposed to Iowa, mucking up the Big Ten title game. But let's talk about next week's game because we'll have time to talk about that. We know Iowa's going now. At Nebraska, Kirk Ferentz made a comment late in the press conference. He's like, maybe we won't even play our starters in that game. Just like the NFL, we already clinched, right? That's what the NFL does when they can't improve their position, right? I'm not saying they will do that. I don't think he's ever going to not play a game as hard as they can. But let's be honest, some of these starters could use a week off. I'm serious. This game doesn't mean much other than ranking, wins, bonuses, whatever, right? I mean, I'm not saying you don't try to win, but maybe rest some guys. That's all I'm saying.
It's kind of it's an awkward situation because you rarely come across this in college football where it's the outcome is kind of already decided. The game really doesn't have much bearing at all. At this point in the season, it's usually fighting for a conference title or getting to a bowl game, or there's some weight to it. And maybe the fact that it's a rivalry game, I mean, that adds a little. But if there's a guy that's maybe 50-50 of playing, and he would play if Iowa needed a win to go to the Big Ten championship. Maybe you don't play him. I think some of those kind of on the line, decisions that could be on the line, maybe you rest them to get them some more time off to heal before the Big Ten championship game. But it just does feel kind of like, I don't know, this was like a really emotional, like kind of crescendo to the season. And it's like, oh, there's still one more regular season game to go after this before they get to the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, it's a weird spot indeed. I don't know what Nebraska's score is right now, but they might be playing for a bowl game if they lose to Wisconsin tonight. So, guys, I might consider resting again. Competitors, I'm not discounting any of that stuff. If you want to play and they want to play, fine. But Connor Colby goes out tonight with an injury. We do not know what that injury was. He was asked about it. He declined. He didn't even address it. I don't know. It's just how it happened in the press conference. Now we get the mic, so you can't even do follow-ups. So you have to hope that he answers it, and he didn't. So we don't know his injury. Logan Jones obviously tried to go tonight, made it 2 series, and then Tyler Ellsbury came in for the 3rd straight week. Might be a good week to rest Logan Jones. Might be a good week to rest Connor Colby. Dargan says it's 17-17 in Madison going to overtime. How about that? Hey, Nebraska getting extra snaps on its legs for that.
Can we talk about O-line, Jennings Dunker just flattening the Illinois? Geez.
How about – and Kirk takes the timeout. I wish we could have asked him about that. That did not come up. I wanted to ask him if he thought it was a legal block, because 5 flags came out and said it was a blind flag. I mean,
he destroyed that dude, though. I mean, that was crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what's next, and it's going to be a short week for all of us. Any more final thoughts, Tyler, before we go?
Nah, just a lot of emotion, a lot of passion. It's been a crazy season. So.
Yeah, it really has. Just unbelievable. I mean, can't think of a season anything close to like this, just with all the drama every single week. I mean, even this week, it felt like, kind of positive feelings, blah, blah, blah. And then Cooper DeJean, breaks his leg in practice on Wednesday. So hopefully nothing crazy happens this week. Kirk Ferentz did say is extending the 24-hour rule. So maybe they'll still be hung over going into Lincoln next week.
And he had a cigar post game as well. So
that's right.
Yeah.
He's who knows? Kirk took forever to get a post game. Read into that what you will, but he was savoring every moment of what the post game was, he said. So I'm not saying this is his last year or anything like that. He's talking like he's coming back, but it was notable that he took forever to get to post game media today. And radio was pissed too, because he didn't do radio for a long time.
Yeah, we were just chilling in there waiting. But
yeah. Anyway, thanks for your patience, everyone. Thanks for your contributions, Tyler. Read our coverage at hawkcentral.com. We'll have more up in the morning. Tyler's mailbag, my column, my stuff's up, Dargan stuff's up, Tyler's story's up. We appreciate you guys reading, appreciate you listening, and we will talk to you on the short week next week on Hawk Central.